Hello, welcome to the weekend edition of round number one. Today we're breaking down the past week of Vince McMahon news, the direction of his two major civil cases, and what his supporters have been saying publicly, and my personal gripe with podcasters who keep defending him. So let's get into it. Now, two of Vince McMahon's biggest civil cases are now shifting into private, confidential settings. That means fewer public filings, fewer disclosures, and far less accountability for a man who built an empire on secrecy and control. First is the Janelle Grant sex trafficking case. Yes, it's a sex trafficking case. I'm saying that clearly because some podcasters keep pretending it isn't. Janelle Grant, Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis, and WWE filed a joint motion to delay an upcoming federal hearing and move the entire lawsuit into private arbitration. Grant originally fought to keep the case public, arguing her NDA was signed under duress. Now in arbitration, the public will likely never see a federal trial or the discovery that would have come with it. This lawsuit accuses McMahon of gross sexual assault, emotional abuse, and sex trafficking. It also alleges he stopped paying the $3 million hush money agreement after only $1 million. Next, we had the Delaware shareholder lawsuit. This was a massive corporate trial scheduled for June 2026, which was abruptly canceled. Shareholders argued McMahon forced his way back onto the WWE board in early 2023 and steered the sale specifically to Endeavor because Ari Emanuel promised to let him keep his power. This suit alleged McMahon ignored higher bidders such as KKR and Liberty Media, who would have ousted him immediately. Just before trial, a court ruling revealed McMahon and other executives had destroyed evidence by using Signal's auto-delete function. Hours before they were set to testify, the parties reached a settlement. So to put it simply, McMahon used a multi-billion-dollar corporate sale to secure personal protection. He knew federal investigators were circling. He knew the Grant situation was a ticking time bomb. He needed a buyer that would shield him. So enter the Ari Shield strategy. According to the lawsuit, McMahon's plan was simple. Find a buyer who wouldn't fire him, use Ari Emanuel's support to stay executive chairman, trade shareholder value for personal immunity. It worked until it didn't. Because once the Grant lawsuit went public, the backlash was so severe that Ari Emanuel and the TKO board forced McMahon out anyways. The settlement amount remains private, but based on reporting, it appears the payout will be a corporate and insurance burden, so Nick Khan's massive 2025 compensation package remains untouched. Now, let's go on to the next section, my gripe with the podcasters defending McMahon. So, I want to talk to the podcasters defending Vince McMahon because this part has been driving me crazy. If you run a podcast, you know people listen to you with limited reading comprehension, and if you still present your opinions as facts, you should not have people paying for your content. I've heard people who get paid to talk on YouTube say things like, this isn't a sex trafficking case, Brock Lesnar wasn't involved, Janelle made up the trafficking language, and she was happy with the relationship until the money stopped. None of that is supported by the filings, the lawsuit, or the reporting. Here's what the podcasters never want to admit. Vince McMahon offered Janelle Grant an NDA. She alleges he aggressively pressured her to sign it in January 2022 to keep the relationship hidden from the WWE board and auditors. He then offered her $1 million out of the $2 million she was supposed to receive. Vince McMahon's net worth at that time was $2.2 billion. He couldn't even pay the full amount. And here's the part these podcasters never want to talk about. Even if Vince had paid her the full $2 million, even if the Wall Street Journal never published a word, even if the public sex trafficking lawsuit never happened, the details could have still come out in the Delaware shareholder lawsuit. Why? Because the shareholders' entire argument depended on proving Vince's state of mind during the merger. To do that, the court granted discovery into all sexual misconduct allegations and hush money payments. Every NDA, every payout, every internal document, including anything involving Janelle Grant, could have been subpoenaed. McMahon, Nick Khan, and Triple H were scheduled to testify under oath under these exact topics. They were going to be questioned about the hush money environment, the deleted signal messages, and the eternal culture that allowed this to happen. And then suddenly, the case settles. I wonder why. Now let's talk about Brock Lesnar. He wasn't a defendant, but he absolutely could have become one if the circumstances lined up differently. Now, the lawsuit alleges that in 2021, Vince McMahon used Janelle Grant as a sexual pawn to entice Lesnar into re-signing with WWE. McMahon allegedly forced Grant to create explicit, personalized photos and videos for Lesnar. Lesnar allegedly texted her under the alias Polish Joe, requesting explicit photos and demanding she travel to Raw for a sexual encounter. No encounter ever happened because of a snowstorm, because Lesnar was allegedly intoxicated, and because Grant actively tried to avoid the meetings. But the intent was there. The communication was there. The pressure was there. And when the lawsuit went public, WWE immediately benched Lesnar. He was later cleared by WWE's legal team and returned to TV, which Grant's lawyers publicly criticized. So, no, I'm not listing every detail. I'm calling out the flawed logic of these podcasters who keep insisting that this was just a consensual relationship between Grant and McMahon. You know, I'm a guy too. You know, guys can have fantasies, sure, but not like this. Not under these circumstances. Let's talk about the people defending McMahon publicly this week. First up is JBL. JBL on his Ask JBL Anything podcast called this lawsuit BS. He didn't actually say BS, but I'm saying BS. I'm saying that he said BS, okay? And labeled the lawyers jackasses. He said McMahon has paid people off before just to avoid the headache of court, calling these settlements nuisance fees. Calling these payouts nuisance fees makes it sound like independent contractors are hustling Vince for money. Meanwhile, reporting from the Wall Street Journal and federal filings shows at least 6 NDAs or hush money agreements totaling over $25 million. If that's a nuisance fee, then what does that say about the scale of misconduct? Then we had Teddy Long. He was on TMZ's Inside the Ring. Teddy Long said wrestling needs Vince back because creative leadership today is misusing its power. He believes promoters and bookers hurt careers simply because they can. And I'm going to be honest, you know, I'm just a wrestling fan. I don't know the day-to-day mechanics of booking, but I do know this. Fans think WWE creative is headed by one person's vision, and that person is Triple H. I don't think that's true anymore. WWE creative is a committee made up of TV partners, sponsorships, the TKO board, Triple H's team, and the financial targets they're told to hit. If the board tells Triple H they need to cut costs in 6 months, somebody's push dies. Somebody's storyline gets dropped. That's the reality. Long solution is for WWE to just bring Vince back. And my response is simple. Vince's creative peak died before 2020. Now, the pandemic era and the myth of the bloodline boom. People have been romanticizing the bloodline storyline. And but the business reality is different. Fox lost money. SmackDown was underperforming. The pandemic era was miserable for fans and the world. I lost my freedom, my home, my vehicle, my grandmother, and wrestling was depressing to watch. The bloodline storyline only became magical once crowds returned and Cody Rhodes came back to the WWE. That's when the story truly took off. Now, as for creative today, WWE has the tools but not the will. I said this during the AAA Mass vs. Mass results video. WWE has everything it needs to create great feuds. They just don't do it consistently because they're lazy and overly corporate. AAA is basically WWE's operation in Mexico, but without a giant committee. That's why they can pull off something like the El Grande Americano feud so easily. WWE could do the same stateside, even with TKO breathing down their neck, but they choose not to for some weird reason. Now, could Vince return? In my opinion, not as an on-screen character. That era is over. But as a consultant, I think that could happen in the future. But with his new firm, 14th and I, and the cash he has liquidated, he absolutely has the resources to, not come back to the WWE, even in a consulting role, and just focus on building something new in sports media that competes with the WWE. And I'll admit this, Vince had a unique ability to make Mondays at 8 p.m. feel must-see. WrestleMania 39 was so magical. It felt so magical. WrestleMania 40 was probably the last WrestleMania that felt magical. And I know the official word is that WrestleMania 39 was his last backstage involvement, but I personally believe he influenced WrestleMania 40. Teddy Long goes on to say that Vince never stopped thinking about wrestling. And I believe that wrestling is his entire identity. So in closing, that's where we are. Vince McMahon's legal battles are disappearing behind closed doors. His defenders are loud, even when they're uninformed. WWE's creative is a corporate committee, not a singular vision. And the question of Vince's future hangs over the industry, whether people want to admit it or not. This has been your weekend edition of Round Number 1. I'm Michael. Thank you for listening, and stay cool.